What's going on, my brother? Everybody all right? Good evening, good evening, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thanks for tuning in to another segment of Incarceration to Incorporation. I'm AB, I'm the founder and the CEO. Incarceration to Incorporation, I started it with the hopes of helping those transition back into society, those that have been down the prison pathway. We give them the necessary resources that they'll need to transition back into society, being that they're halfway home, coming home. They whether be they in a halfway house or they 6 months upon release from being incarcerated, whether there's a state bid or a federal bid. Like I said, I'm the CEO, AB. I founded this organization back in 2008. Actually, I started it in 2008 while I was incarcerated, and I seen a need for this. I seen a need for it, and I came home, put the necessary steps together, and here we are here, man, with a great platform at All Things Relevant Media. They giving me the opportunity to have you brothers on to voice y'all opinion, voice y'all successes of y'all coming through this prison pathway. And we're going to give the people that's viewing in and the people that's listening, we're going to give them an understanding of what it is to transition back into society coming from a prison pathway. I got my co-host, Joyce Hall, and my co-host, Joyce Campbell. We're going to take it over to them. They're going to introduce the brothers, and we're going to have a good show. We got a great show, man. These brothers here are very successful coming out of the prison passageway, prison pathway, or whatever. They done numerous years in prison, and now they home transitioning back into society. So we're gonna talk to them. We're gonna have a good show. Julius Hall, my brother.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Julius, I think your mic is the one that's giving us a lot of feedback. So you might want to check it or just mute it for a minute. You hear me? Okay.
That's sound a lot better,
Yes.
bro.
Okay. Yes, I think it's your mic. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our panel. We got some guys from across the nation who's be giving y'all their story tonight, and we got 1 hour of awesome testimonies and information for you. We want you to know that on this program, you always got a resource. That's what we created this for, so you can have a resource, somewhere to reach out. We bring you the information from across the nation to let you know that you can go anywhere from where you at. Doesn't matter where you at. You can make it to any place. Once paid, a debt is no longer a debt. That is our motto here. You already paid your debt, then move on with your life and get it right. So we thank y'all, brothers, for coming on. And we're going to turn it over to Brother Julius Wright. Y'all tune in to All Things Relevant Media on Facebook and ATR Black Media Network on YouTube. Brother Campbell.
What's up? What's up? First of all, I want to say thank you again for this opportunity to share, to give brothers a platform for them to share their stories. And we got three men that I believe that's going to really lay it down for us and let us know what their journey looks like from beginning to end. So before we even, get real deep into this, I love what AB said, incarceration to incorporation. This is a platform for to change the narrative of returning citizens. People begin to understand that we too, when we come home, we want to do good and that we also can be an asset to society. So that's what we're doing tonight. Every opportunity that we get, we want to change the perspective, because if we change perspective, we can change policies. So that's why I want to start tonight by introducing our brothers, allowing them the opportunity to A, tell us who they are, and B, tell us their relationship to incarceration. In other words, how much time you did. You don't have to tell us what you did, but how much time you did, and what is your relationship to incarceration, and was your transition a smooth one or not? So we'll start off with Fred, and then we'll move on to the next man. So Fred, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, doing your how you transition back into society. Tell us a little bit.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Fred Green. A lot of people in my community call me Tory T. I'm from Savannah, Georgia, and during my stints of incarceration, from juvenile to the adult system, I spent about 8 years total in and out of the system, and then another 7 years on parole, because being justice involved and justice impacted is the totality of the whole system. So was it a smooth transition? No, it wasn't a smooth transition. Coming home in Savannah, they give you that 20 during the time when I came home in 2000. They give you a $25 bus ticket and send you on your way. There was no restorative justice programs. There was nothing there that if you didn't have the support of your family, then of course, recidivism was the thing. But with strong determination, and a will to change the narrative, a will not to be the statistic. I hit the ground running, started working, started to seek education, because I knew education was the currency. I knew education was the equalizer. So I started trying to do various things, from electrical construction and maintenance to culinary school. I found a niche, which was food and beverage. I found out they wasn't doing no background checks. So therefore, a lot of restaurants weren't doing background checks. So I started hustling the restaurants. And while I was hustling the restaurants, for those brothers that might be coming home, to give you a nugget, I went to culinary school so I could get a step up in the restaurant game. Once I got a step up in the restaurant game and started managing a little bit of in the food and beverage industry, everything from fine dining to casual cuisine, then I started going back to school, because I felt like I needed to do something more. I went back, and to make a long story short, I wound up earning a bachelor's degree in theology and psychology. And I went on and jumped from there and went to Savannah State University and got my master's in clinical social work. because I felt like I wanted to do some counseling, because counseling, I could always eat off of that, until I'm old and gray. So one of the things that I did that helped me also continue to be able to go to school and make my way, feed my family, is I took my skill of cleaning dormitories. I started a small commercial cleaning business called Serve Right. And I started doing floor maintenance, just like I did in the chain gang, and started doing floor maintenance and cleaning office buildings. I learned the game. So I took that out here and used my lived experience from there and my drive and my determination of my hustle in the streets and applied that to corporate America. From there, I just started doing. So now, by profession, I'm a clinical social worker. I work in the field of mental health. I work in the field of substance abuse, and I work in the field of reintegration. Helping brothers to understand that successful reintegration is real and it is possible if they have the right support. So, Julius, you touched on a significant thing about changing the narrative. It is public perception that drives public policy. And so through that, I showed that successful reintegration is real, and I'm not a statistic, and therefore changing that narrative, changing that perception so that we can help change policy.
Right. You said something very powerful.
Awesome.
You said something very powerful. That's the reason why I started Incarceration to Incorporation. See what you did. You came from an incarcerated, what they say, mindset. Like you just said, we're gonna change the narrative, but here you are working in the corporate field in so many different areas. You know what I'm saying? So many different areas you working in the corporate field. So you went down that incarceration passageway or pathway or whatever. Now here you are, you know what I mean? We changing the narrative all the way across the board. All the way across the board. And it's not just happening in a few places, it's happening all across the world. You know what I mean? This whole prison thing, recidivism is real everywhere. So Julius Cameron, just go ahead on, continue. You can go ahead. I just had to get that in there because that was powerful. Huh?
Man, AB, what you said is powerful because we have to try to change that. And one of the ways is platforms like this is very important because and some states are more progressive than here. Moving the needle here in Georgia, Atlanta is a little bit more progressive, but in Savannah, we still trying to move and it's still a focus through most of our organization on recidivism. But for those of you that are out there tuning, I dare to venture to say there's just as many success stories than it is those who recidivate. But because we moving toward a more restorative justice model, then retribution says that guess what? People just go back. You hear statistics that say in 3 years a person is going to be incarcerated. No, I know people that did 20-year bids, 25-year bids, 10-year bids, that have not went back. So we got to tell these stories. These stories got to get. So I commend you, brother, on doing this. I started a organization last year. It kind of fell apart because you got to keep the numbers going. It fell apart, called Faces and Voices of Reintegration. I call it.
Wait a minute, Fred. Wait a minute before you give the organization name because that's going to come together. Right. And I want the other I want them to tell us who they are. Those, like you said, those new stories, those fresh stories, those positive stories, and then we're going to come back and segue into our organization and what we're doing. So I want to go ahead and start with Tom Price. Tom, tell us a little bit about who you are and your transition, how much time you did in your transition to what's going on. Was it difficult? Was it hard? And then again, we're going to go step by step.
Okay. I'm blessed to be here with you guys. I don't know why you put me behind this guy right here, right? But I started off, I grew up in the ghetto in Spokane, Washington. My stepdad was an atheist, and he brainwashed the whole family in believing in evolution. So that started off my life with no identity, no purpose, no peace, and everybody got drunk. So by the time I was about 14, I became involved with drugs and alcohol, became an alcoholic when I was about 18. I'm telling you all this to lead up to where I went. And so age 22, I got married. We had 4 kids. And after about 10 years of partying, drinking, and fighting, My wife had enough and left in the middle of the night, right? 7 months later, after while I was trying to drink away my blues and my self-pity for 7 months, my choices, my decisions led to massive destruction, irreparable damage. I'm telling you, it was unbearable consequences. Super Bowl Sunday, 1993, February 1993, we had a big party at my best friend's house. The game's over, we're all smashed. My best friend's house was just full of people. It was time to go home. We was on Bankhead Highway. Anybody heard of Bankhead in Atlanta?
Right.
Okay. Yep. We were traveling. Me and another guy was traveling down Bankhead Highway in my 1-ton flatbed truck. I was a subcontractor. I was building fence. And by now, guys, I'm an alcoholic. I'm having to drink 3 or 4 beers to wake up in the morning. I can't cope. I can't hardly deal with much at all except stay drunk. All right. We're on Bankhead Highway going around this corner, going toward Austell from Douglasville, and we slammed head on with another car. Both of us going about 55 miles an hour. Here we was in a 1-ton truck, and the other car was just a little Chevy Citation. The lady that was driving the other car was only 19, and she was 8 months pregnant.
Wow.
Oh,
Killed her and her baby like that.
wow.
Next to her in the front seat was her 18-year-old sister. She also just got pregnant. She was in a coma for 26 days, and then she died and her baby died.
Wow.
In the back seat of the same car was a 38-year-old woman, like a stepmom to the 2 sisters. It crushed every bone in her face, shattered her hip, broken arm. She had multiple surgeries, plastic surgeries, gained a bunch of weight. This woman was drop dead gorgeous, y'all, before the crash. I said crash, not an accident. And she lost her husband, lost her job, got brain damage, still suffers today. Next to her, same car, same back seat, was a 4-year-old little boy. Got a broken leg, some broken fingers, cuts on his face. He survived, but his mom was the driver. Next to him was a 9-month-old baby girl strapped in a car seat. Now that other car was mangled. It was twisted, mangled, smashed, doors jammed, car caught on fire. The little girl didn't get a scratch on her. Miracle. Meanwhile, whoever was with me jumped out and ran.
Wow.
And I didn't remember a thing. I didn't know who he was. I didn't remember nothing. I just woke up and all of it happened. So on to jail I went.
Wow.
I don't know if I want to go any farther than that.
Yeah, we'll get the rest in a minute.
Okay.
Julius, we're going to go over to successful convicts.
Yes, sir.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yes,
Oh, yeah,
sir.
we good. We good.
Okay. Well, I'm Eli Perkins. I go by the name of Bont83. And let's see, I grew up in Chicago. You know, like they used to tell me in prison, I wasn't supposed to be here type of story. You know, mom, dad, went to Catholic school from kindergarten to 12th grade. You know, so I was like the smart guy, you know what I mean? So I thought, and it led me to venturing, you know, into the streets and got off into, you know, the drug trade, so to speak. And then I wound up going out of town, and going out of town led me to get a 151-month federal sentence. And let's see, when was that? In 2000, I want to say 2008, when they changed the drug sentencing laws, I got an early release. And as far as the transition goes, I want to say that my transition was kind of smooth. It wasn't as rough, because what I noticed, if you don't have a family, a support system, and you know, that's what I like about this platform, because it's family to a lot of people, even people with their family. But some people come home and they don't have families. And if you don't got no family, their recidivism is really high, because that was my support system. I was able to go to my sister's house, you know, my mother and fathers, they were still married, you know what I mean? And I had everybody there for me. So it wasn't as rough as, me having to find housing and, when I needed something, having to figure out how I was going to get that. So that family, having that family core made my transition, even, looking back, made it a lot smoother than I see a lot of guys have it. Because, a lot of times we don't know if it's going smooth or rough. We just know it is what it is until we hear other stories from other people. Right. So from me hearing other stories, I saw that mine went pretty smooth for the most part. Now, what happened was when the laws changed, I wound up getting immediately released. So that kind of like put me at an advantage and a disadvantage, because going to the halfway house, I noticed that's where a lot of guys get there. You get the plugs of where to get jobs at, what to do, what not to do, where to go, where not to go, and stuff like that. So I didn't, although I was able to go straight home, I didn't have to deal with the halfway house. I didn't have that other support system from people that was going through the same thing like me, because my family wasn't going through, they wasn't on supervised release and having to do drops and all that type of stuff. So I had to figure that part out by myself. But for the most part, it was smooth. And got off into it's a few programs. I'm in Minnesota, by the way. I'm in Minnesota now. Like I'm in a suburb of Minneapolis. So Minneapolis is pretty, Minnesota itself is pretty, forgiving, and they have a lot of programs and stuff. That was one of the reasons why I didn't personally want to go back to Chicago, because I know as far as the resources and all that type of stuff go, as far as doing the right thing is low. You know what I mean? It's easy to do the wrong thing there. So I figured I have a better chance by coming here. So, and then I got off into this one program where it took me through the electrical field, and I wound up getting off into low voltage electrical. And so that was
electrical. You getting that money then? Let me hold some with that electrical out there.
Because with this COVID and all that type of stuff, I was working in the data center, and I wanted, when we get to that part of it, I just want people to understand that you put more limitations on you than all these laws and all that other type of stuff. Because I was working in the data center. I worked in the data center for Wells Fargo. I worked in data center for UHG, and I wound up, when all this COVID stuff started happening, it's so many opportunities out there now that a lot of people, either they figure is not for them, or they don't venture into them, or either they just don't know about it. But it was just so much money out here, I quit my job. So.
And I'm glad you shared that, Eli, because just like AB said, the narrative has to change, and that's why we brought each of you on to share. I want you now to segue into, because your name intrigues me. The name of your organization intrigues me. So I want you, that's where we're going to go. I'm going to start with Lee first, because I wanted Lee to share his story so that he can tell us what organization he does now as it relates to recovery and speaking. But I want to start with Lee, come back to Eli, and then wrap up with Fred. I want to know the name of your organization, why you chose that, because Fred has an acronym for his organization as well, and it's because of the past. So Lee, wrap up your story as to how it turned out, which is a testimony in and of itself for just one whole segment. But I want you to bring it into a segue into what you are doing now as it relates to speaking and recovery. And then we'll go to Eli, the name of your organization, why you came up with it, and then Fred, the name of your organization and why you came up with it as well.
Are you talking to me? Is Lee?
Oh, you mean, yeah, Tom.
Okay. Well, went to jail. I was like a ninth grade dropout. and had a 7-day jury trial. And I was scared to death. I was facing 57 years. And long story short, I was a real mean atheist. Okay, I was running Christians out of my yard. My jury trial was very high profile. All the news stations filmed it, and so I was on the bright light, but I was scared to death. And they put me in these little rooms during the recesses and breaks. I was all by myself. It was just a flat concrete floor. So I'd walk in circles in this little room 3 or 4 times a day. Well, the 5th day of the trial, I'm walking in the little room, and out of nowhere, my hands went up. I looked at the ceiling. I said, if there's really a God up there, I need you, and I need you now. 2 days later, the trial was over, standing in front of the judge, guilty on all charges, 57 years, $300,000 restitution. My attorney's whispering in my ear the whole time, show no remorse. And I'm saying to myself, I knew there's no such thing as God, right? The next day, that's 3 days after I raised my hand, the day after my conviction was on a Wednesday. Wednesday night, this trustee said, meet me in church. I'll give you some cigarettes. I ain't been in church since I was a little boy. Didn't know nothing about it. I said, sure. I just got convicted. I'm bummed out. I'll take anything free, right? I'm broke. So I meet the guy in church. Don't know what church is like. I walk in there skeptical, but I end up having a 90-minute encounter with Jesus Christ, and I literally became born again. I mean, I was transformed in that 90-minute thing. But during that 90-minute encounter, God said, I got a plan for your life. So my transition began on the inside, okay? I became starving for the word of God, got into every Bible study, every correspondence course. I ended up doing about 8 years of Bible school, Bible colleges, went to the seminary, earned a bachelor's degree in theology. I ended up writing 5 books, hundreds of poems, sermons, got involved with this guy here, Miko. He and I were chaplain aides at Hancock for 5.5 years. We got involved with Kairos prison ministry. And I ended up going to a transitional center. I was fortunate to go through Columbus Transitional Center. I served 17 years. And earlier on, my first wife had divorced me. And so I got a new wife. She came in and married me in prison 4 years before I got out. She waited for me the whole time, got out. So my transition, I had a wife. All my family's up north, so she was pretty much it. But she was all I needed. And God just started opening doors. From the day after I got out, I got a job. I went back to college. I got another degree in accounting. I went from a meat plant where they was hiring ex-offenders and ended up being an accounting assistant. And then I ended up in home health care business. I became an office manager there. And I mean, I just kept walking through the doors that God opened. And he said he had a plan. So and then from there,
hold up right there with that plan. Now we want to go to Eli. Eli, tell us the name of your organization and why you came up with that name and basically what you do.
Okay, the name Successful Convicts. I came up with the name because as I sat one day just looking around, because a lot of times we quick to point out the bad things that's going on in life and looking over the good things. So I always try to look at the good instead of the bad. And, a buddy of mine, when I was at work, he was just, telling me he was noticing my transition from when I first started working there. And me and him had gotten close. And, from my stories and all I've been through, he was like, man, you really made it. And I was like, what you mean by that? He was like, man, think about how successful you is. He was like, man, look, because I had went from living in my sister's house to an apartment. Then I went from the apartments to the townhouses. Then I left the townhouse and I said, I'm going to get me a house. And then I got my house. So he was just pointing out and I got to thinking. So I was already doing the YouTube and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start a channel and I'm going to call it Successful Convicts because I don't know if y'all know, but it's a big prison genre on YouTube. So I got off into that, and my whole goal, I wanted to show people that being successful, not necessarily working for a big company or owning a big company or not even owning anything at all. It's about staying out of prison. Every day you out of prison, you successful. And that starts a thinking pattern. Because a lot of people, it's so crazy because I try to get people to do interviews with me on my YouTube channel. And I always get the, oh man, I ain't successful, or I ain't doing this, or I ain't doing that. Man, I'm talking to you. I ain't talking to you over prison phone. You successful. You know what I mean? A lot of people need to know that. Like for me, I'm just getting to I done had successful comics for the last few years as far as the YouTube channel and, Instagram, all the social media stuff. I'm getting off into the t-shirts. But I'm still, getting the grasp of it and learning and stuff like that. I have to tell people, man, you don't have to have it all together to be successful. You know what I mean? And a lot of people think that, they hear people come on here and they speak, with, good speech, and they might stutter or they might not know big fancy words or can't spell good, but that don't mean they're not successful. And I try to tell people that, even us all on this page, we all got different stories and coming from different points, but we all winded up in the same spot, and we all out of the same spot and going toward the same direction. No matter where you came from, we all headed to the same direction. And I just like this platform and platforms like this because it's so many people that get out. And, they might look at, both with two Juliuses. They might look at, the Juliuses, Fred, AB, Tom. They might look at each one of us and say, man, their story just don't match mine. You know what I mean? And figure that what we talking about don't apply to them. But that's where, as we come as a group, my story might catch somebody, or somebody else's story might catch somebody because they might be in the same position. They might say, oh man, that's, and that's what used to throw me off when I was in prison watching the infomercials. I don't know if everybody else did it, but I used to watch the infomercials because you're trying to get information. I used to tell my people that all the time. That's one of the biggest things I needed when I was locked up, information. I ain't really need money. Money you just gonna buy and put more money back into the prison. That's the way I looked at it. So I was like, I need information. I need you to send me this information, send me that information, because back then we didn't have computers. You know what I mean? Now they can get on the internet a little bit, but information. So one thing I noticed on the real estate infomercials, all these different infomercials, none of them ever said I was an ex-con or I got out of prison and I did this program. I was like, man, I never saw that person that was in my position go on to success. You know what I mean? And then even being in that, people have to understand what success is. Every day you on this side of the wall or this side of the fence, you successful. And people need to know that just so they can come out and give it a try. And then that's when they come to us and hit each one of us for the resources to go on to further success. But they have to understand that, first of all, success is being on the other side of that wall.
Right.
That's great.
So that was I got the name.
Awesome. You can go anywhere from where you at. Next up is Fred.
Yeah. My journey began with it. I was, to be honest with you, I was trying to just work and fly up under the radar. Like I hear a lot of brothers saying this, in Savannah, they're like, I don't want to put myself out there. I just want to fly up on the radar. So I got to give credit to one of my colleagues, Dr. Maxine Bryant. And she brought here, I used to go around, I felt like working every program would help me to become successful. I didn't care what kind. You talk about buying home. I went to home buyer program. I went to every program that Savannah offered to try to get some kind of, lift up out of, from the stigma of incarceration, and having that background. And so I used to go to this thing called the Ladies at the Round. You can find you talk about information, and you can find information from the most places that you think you won't. And I used to go to these, what you call Ladies at the Round Table. It was a dentist, a doctor, a science doctor, and it was another lady who had a production company, and we just talk about community stuff. And so one day I was walking downtown, and one of the ladies that was at the round table, I ran into. I said, "Hey, I see you at the round table," and that's networking. You know what I'm saying? Your network becomes your network. So I said, "I see you at the round table." She said, "Yeah," and she said, "You said something about you being incarcerated," and she told me about a job. So long story short, I wound up getting a job, trying to be outreach and support coordinator for those that were in gangs and which called group violence intervention. So from there, she started introducing me to this group out of California called All of Us or None of Us. I don't know if you all heard of that before. Well, All of Us or None of Us was a group think tank that was instrumental for the Ban the Box initiative, which we got it in 2016, but they did it in 2012. And she was saying we need to start a group like that here, a group of successful people who are reintegrated here. And so that's when the idea came. I named it Faces and Voices of Reintegration because we truly are the faces and the voices of reintegration. And I acronymed it by favor. And I felt like the reason why I named it that is because I'm a recipient, Tom, like you spoke of God's favor. Because I was just like everybody's story. I don't think I deserve to be here, you know. And so you know, favor is that there are the faces and voices. So I'm not a rarity. And around somebody say, "Well, you rare, you one of the few, man." And I'm like, no, it's plenty faces and voices of people who don't got out of prison that's doing well. So that was the reason why I started the organization in 2020 and kind of been going at it, like you said, Eli, just kind of going at it and trying to gather people so that we can change public perception.
Awesome.
Now, there was a reason why, guys, this was strategic in these three men. One of the reasons is, and I know Julius and AB know this very well, that one of the reasons for mass incarceration is substance abuse, alcohol and drugs. Another reason for mass incarceration is, as we've already talked about, people don't understand people's stories. And another reason for mass incarceration is mental health issues. Well, we got these three men, Tom, who was dealing with substance abuse, and Fred, who helped to learn and be educated by mental health issues, and then Eli, who says, listen, everybody needs to hear these stories. So it was strategic for having these men to come on. And so feel free at any time to ask these men about these three specific areas: substance abuse, mental health, and also dialoguing about your story. And before they ask the question, Tom, I want you to, because you never got a chance to come into the Celebrate Recovery aspect. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Celebrate Recovery and those other substance abuse organizations that you have been speaking for. And then, Fred, you tell us a little bit about the mental health aspect, how you have been speaking towards those areas as well, because that is the reason for mass incarceration: substance abuse, recidivism, mental health issues, and poor education. So, Tom, you start off with the substance abuse.
Okay, well, after I got out, got back involved with Kairos prison ministry, and I went back into the prisons for about 4.5 years. But eventually, they caught on I was still on parole and took my badge, and so I was left without anything to do. So one day I'm driving in this car wash, and I laid my head back and closed my eyes. My phone is on the dash, on the magnet, and I closed my eyes and say, "Okay, God, what do you want me to do?" And right then, this guy named Terry came to my mind. And I opened up my eyes, and I'll be doggone, I got a text from the same guy at the same time. All right. So I called him. He was a pastor for Celebrate Recovery. And so I started going to Celebrate Recovery. All those of us who've been incarcerated know how hungry and starving people are in church inside. They're at the church service, they're just starving, right? Well, Celebrate Recovery is the same way. It's alive in there. When you go to Celebrate Recovery, they're on their feet. They're praising God. They're thankful. They're grateful for where they are today. These people have been, some of these people have been so addicted that most of them were almost killed. I mean, so Celebrate Recovery was a very lively place. They base their teaching on kind of like AA, but it's a biblical perspective. They got a worship service. Then they got the either a speaker or a lesson on one of the 12 principles. And then they break down little groups. They break down and talk about where am I? Where am I at today? Where am I struggling? And it's not to fix anybody. We don't try to fix each other in the group. We just listen and then we pray. So Celebrate Recovery is very fast moving right now. It's exploding worldwide. But that's one avenue to seek. If you're getting out of prison and you don't want to slide back into your addiction, then Celebrate Recovery would be a great start. But of course, church would be the first place I'd send you. Yeah. Get you a good church, somebody that will help you believe in yourself. People need to know, I believe in you. You've got what it takes. Most people don't know who they really are. And so for me, I had to discover my true identity. My identity established my value, and my value revealed my potential, and my potential pointed to my purpose. So I became purpose driven. And so with a purpose in mind, with knowing that God gave you a purpose, that will give the people the tools that they need to stay focused on their purpose and not on their drugs or alcohol.
Right.
Amen.
So like you said, what Eli spoke on earlier about the support system. So Tom, I gotta ask you a question. How long did it take you to seek the help that you got, far as when you got home? How long did it take for you to get the support team that you wanted and to start getting with those organizations or those programs to help you back into, transition back into society?
Well, like I said, I got born again in 1993. So I was already a very mature Christian before I got out. I had a wife, and immediately we got us a church. And so I had the church support, and then work kept me busy besides church. But it was later that I reached out, not for help, but to give help to these other people. I wasn't seeking help in Celebrate Recovery. I went to see who I could encourage. So that was the way it was for me. I was really born again October 13th, 1993. I haven't touched a drop since.
Wow. That's awesome.
Awesome. Awesome. I kind of hated that I showed that Reds earlier. Then now I'm thinking about I shouldn't have showed that. I shouldn't have showed that bottle I had earlier.
I was wondering what was in that bottle.
No, it wasn't nothing. It wasn't nothing.
Yeah, that wasn't even a beer.
No, it wasn't. It was very virgin.
Yeah. And see, the stories that you guys are telling are so relevant to somebody who might be on that edge, somebody who might be thinking that, what am I to do today? Just fight another day. Like Brother Eli say, you successful, you are breathing, you're on this side of that wall. So do what you got to do. Just keep moving forward. God saved you for a reason. Other than that, you'll be dead. So
That's right.
These stories are great. We are forming what we have here is a support system for that we can have different places that people can hear that they can go to no matter where they're at in the country. We have people all over the country with this program and with the programs that you all are talking about. So they have the resources to get what they need so that they can just hang on for one more day. And sometimes that's all it takes is one more day. One more day. You get that one more day, you can say, I made it over that hump. Because just when you're about to do something stupid or do something that's going to cause you to go back in, somebody and that resource is there to help you. So
Right.
I thank you guys for everything that y'all are saying tonight that gives somebody hope. And
Hey,
God
I
uses.
wanted to ask Tom something. Would you say that what helped you with the recovery process was replacing that need with something else?
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that, man. I found that discovering who I really was and what my purpose really was, that doing that, just starting first, taking the first step and just going toward that, I found more meaningfulness and fulfillment that it brought such joy to me. I didn't even think about the drinking, the drugs, the cigarette. I was just so satisfied with fulfilling my purpose. And like I said, God just kept opening doors left and right. But I did forget. Can I tell you one little thing? I got to tell you this. After I was incarcerated, after 12 years, I discovered I wasn't the driver. The guy who
Ooh.
jumped out and ran was my best friend.
Mm.
So I discovered I was innocent, right? I served 12 years at that time. But at that point, the victims had loved on me. Some of them did, told me they forgave me. So that grace was reproduced inside of me. So then when I discovered I was innocent, I had no bitterness or anger or vengeance toward the real driver. But the same thing, grace they gave me, I wanted to give him. Say, hey, man, I forgive you. What God did for me, he'll do for you. But I still ended up doing 5 more years. I'm still paying his restitution. But
Mm.
God, if I hadn't gotten in that car wreck, I'd be dead.
Mm.
Wow. And that's an awesome story. Grace reproduced from you, from God to you to the other person. Fred, mental health. Tell us a little bit about that because that is one of the our greatest problems or epidemics, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word to use in the prison system, mental health. Tell us a little bit about why you learned it and just give us some understanding of it.
I learned about mental health. Well, I learned a lot about myself learning about mental health because a lot of the stuff I did was informed by trauma and mental health. Um, and so, what gave me toward mental health actually was one of my first jobs out of college was I was able to work in Georgia Regional Hospital of Savannah, a psychiatric hospital. And I started to give that installation of hope. Somebody spoke about hope, that recovery is possible, recovery is real, battling my own substance abuse issues. And so I started to see, I said, dog, these are people that I grew up with. You know, they was labeled crazy so-and-so or crazy so-and-so, but it's people that I grew up in my neighborhood with. I saw people out of my neighborhood coming back and forth in the hospital. And so instead of me being a conduit of them using and contributing to their mental health, I was now a source of their help. I was now a source of linking them to resources and helping them through their situation. So I think instead of saying mental health is one of the sources of of being I think mental health being criminalized is the problem. You know, instead of people getting help that they need and having good support and safety nets, they're being put in prisons and jails. They're being criminalized for substance usage and substance abuse and for mental health issues. And so that's what we got to change. And so I think this work now that I'm able to do and sit on a lot of task force. I sit on the mayor's reentry task force right now. I'm able to outline that to them and able to tell them about, you know, why we must put sound policies in place, why we must be able to help implement programs that will help people out of those situations and give them the resources that they need. And so I think it's very important. I didn't think I was going to deal with. I deal with individuals that are right now currently in my job title. I deal with individuals who are what you classify as severe and persistent mental illness. So they're the individual, we call them the invisible people. People that society had just said left them on the streets, ostracized them, and I put them in my car. I give them insulation of hope. I don't tell them they can't smoke a cigarette. I feel like we only have a small window to provide hope for somebody. So if a person is getting out of the hospital or something, I go buy them a pack of cigarettes. Hey man, get that edge off. You know what I mean? You're just coming out of the system. Hey, whatever you need, I'm here. I don't care if they're dirty, smelling, whatever. I provide that hope for them. And it does a world of difference for people just to know that somebody loved them and giving them that grace that was given to me, Charles. So that's important.
Amen.
Awesome. Julius, you always say this, and help me if I'm incorrect, but you say that this syndicate is also inside some jail or prison. And if I say it correctly for me, but I wanted them, the people that's still our brothers and sisters that's still behind the wall, to know, just like Eli and Tom and Fred and all of us, we prepared while we were there. We heard those stories, we prepared, and now we're here successful, like Eli said, on the outside. And we want them to know, listen, the same can happen for you, because I believe they say 95% of those that are incarcerated will be coming home. So men and women, prepare yourself. Eli, Tom, Fred, what word of encouragement would you share with those 8 that are on the inside, but also B, those that are already out, returning citizen? What word of encouragement would you share?
Before you go, I want to just make sure before they go, it's being broadcast, but they're going to rebroadcast it in Jessup on Saturday in Jessup, FCI Jessup, the prison in Jessup. That's Pastor Smalls. That's one of his radio stations. He owns 3 radio stations, and he's kind enough. Him and Anna Davis, she's the program manager. She runs the station, and they broadcast into the system. So when those guys hear it in there, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to get it broadcast other places. So when these guys hear it, it can slow down and lower the recidivism rate. So, to God be the glory with all of that.
Right.
But go ahead, Julius.
It's on Eli. I want Eli and then Fred and then Lee to give a word of encouragement. You got 2 audiences. One that's still behind the wall, our brothers and sisters. Encourage them you know what to do. And then B, those of us returning citizens that have come home, encourage. What word would you speak to them as well? Start with Eli, then Fred, then Lee.
Okay, real simple, and this goes for both audiences. One's inside, one's outside. Love conquers all, and what Brother Fred was just saying about the mental illness, we have to understand that that's an illness, and we know that illnesses can be treated, and love is the first treatment to that illness. Because I'm not a real big believer on all these medicines and stuff like that, even though I do know, because my wife's a social worker, some people need medication because they imbalanced. But love is that love, man. That love conquers all. You know what I mean? And a lot of times, especially on the inside, we see that it's a system that's set up. It's almost set up for us to fail, which goes back. I want to reiterate on that mental illness. It's almost like we've been put in a place due to normalizing unnormal situations. You see what I'm saying? A lot of things, especially like when you come from the hood and stuff like that, a lot of things, being black and, being poor, what I mean? Poor don't got no color. But when you're in these type of situations, a lot of things that are normal are normalized. So you grow thinking it's normal and you get to doing it and everybody's doing it. And that's where you got a lot of mental illness in these situations. And it's like when you look on the other side and you see, oh man, this is normal to do this, and it's normal to do that. Stuff that society says as a what we call civilians, civilian like behavior, paying taxes and voting and going to the grocery store and paying for your groceries and going home and taking care of your kids. That type of stuff is normal, but we don't normalize it enough, which goes back to the successful convict thing. We got to show other people how this is normal. It's normal for you to succeed. You know, you go to jail or go to prison, you get out, you don't have to carry that on your back for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? You can readapt into society. You can become successful. You can employ other people. You know what I mean? You can do all things. The only thing that can stop you is you. And, you know, that plays a big part of mental health. And as far as the addiction goes, too, that's why I asked Tom, did he replace it? Because a lot of people, just like we don't know that we got PTSD from our childhoods and what we grew up under, we don't even know that we're addicted. Like, I would like to, my addiction is hustling. But what I have to find out is I have to replace my product with legal products because I love to hustle. Now, I'm hustling t-shirts. So, you know what I'm saying? I get excited when I sell a t-shirt. Same way I did when I was on the corner, I sell a bag. I just had to replace my hustle. I do lines. I cut grass. You know, if it's a hustle out here, I'm probably doing it. You know, I do Instacart. I do DoorDash. You know what I mean? I get excited when I make those legal dollars, the same way I did for those illegal dollars. And you just you gotta replace it. But one, I want to say replace your hustle with something illegal. With something legal. Take the illegal out of it. Replace it with something legal. And love conquers all, man. You know, and brothers that's on the inside, don't be. You know, we gotta normalize what's normal. Don't be ashamed to tell somebody you love them or show love. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these things we gotta understand. We gotta look outside the box. They created so that we have these prisons. Because without confusion and stuff like that, if I'm hating on Fred because he's from Savannah, I'm from Chicago, that's what they want. Because now they know they can get us to do something stupid and we'll both be on the inside serving their purpose. But our purpose is love. If I show Fred love and he show me love, then that's going to create a whole nother avenue where it's going to set other people up to show love. And we'll stay out of those places. And they
Tell them where they can find you at.
I want to say one thing, man. I love each and every one of y'all on this platform right here, man. I'm sending my love right now to each and every one of y'all. I ain't ashamed to say I love another man. I love each and every one of y'all, man.
I love y'all.
Too, man. Well, tell us where we can find you at, where the people can find you at with Successful Convicts.
Man, I'm on everything. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube under Successful Convicts. Successful Convicts, or you can find me under Bonta 83, BONTA 83 on all platforms.
Okay, and Tom, you got someplace for them to find you?
Not really. Miko's got my contact information.
All right. We'll put it out so everybody can see it. How about you up there, Fred?
Favor Pack 2020. Favor FAVORPAC 2020 at gmail.com. My number is 912-376-9256.
All right. Anything else, AB and Julius?
No, that's it, man. I just like to thank each and every one of y'all, man, before we close out, man. Thank y'all for coming on. Great testimonies, awesome testimonies, and what you all doing with the organizations and the businesses that you all have started, and all the stuff that you're doing in the community. Eli, man, with your clothing, man, we definitely got to hook up, man, with what you got going on out there in Minnesota. I know it's freezing out there. Well, it was freezing out in Minnesota. You know what I'm saying? And Fred, we definitely, man, I'm gonna link up with you too. You know, a lot of stuff you got going on, and also Tom, man, a lot of stuff like with the alcohol and the, substance abuse and stuff. I want to link up with you on that and see how, you know, I'm in North Carolina and it was a hard thing, me trying to get with substance abuse organizations and stuff, and they wasn't trying to do a whole lot of helping out with what I was trying to bring to them. And I came home in 2010. So I'm gonna try to reach out to you about that and how I can go about bringing some type of help or whatever to some of these programs here where I'm at in North Carolina. So like I said, I just like to thank each and every one of y'all for coming on, man. That's all I got to say. And then, you know, Julius, you can say something. Julius Hall and Campbell. Then we're gonna close out.
Yes, sir.
I like
Mr. Campbell, go ahead.
to say one thing. I just want to tell all the viewers that You can do it. Help is not a bad 4-letter word. There are support groups. There are people out here to help you. Link up, whether you in or out. You can do it. You're not a statistic.
All right. Julius.
All I gotta say is this Wednesday at 8011 Waters Avenue, we will have our OAA Savannah support meeting. You are invited. You don't have to do this by yourself. Come on out and get in touch with us. Thank you.
Okay, that wraps it up for us, gentlemen. And we just want to encourage y'all to keep up the good work. We'll have you back on the show from time to time. Julius will be in touch with you to have you back. These are awesome testimonies to show what God can do in our life. You know, some people count you out, but, you know, God counted you in. He has a purpose for all of our lives, and we're just fulfilling those purposes. So y'all just keep moving and shaking. Y'all keep doing what you're doing, and God will bless all of us. It doesn't matter.
I got one more thing. I got one more thing to say. On one of my good brothers, friend of mine, Greg, like-minded Bozeman. He sent a message earlier saying, "Remember, man, we are more than just a felon.
That's
we are
correct.
more than just a felon. You know what I mean? We got to change the narrative." He also wrote a book in that same name. We are more than just a felon. So make sure y'all go check that out, man. Y'all can Google it. It's on Amazon and all of that. We are more than just a felon.
He got t-shirts too.
Yeah. Got it. Everything going on. Exactly.
All right. Well, we're going to hook up. This is what networking is all about. This is how we get help to other people, no matter where you're at. We got people, like I said, we got people all across the country that's a part of this program, that's doing things. We got people that understand that prison touches everybody. Incarceration touches everybody, but incorporation can touch you also. So, with that being said, we'll see you guys soon. And my wife, what a fellowship.
I like that name. I like that.
She's a wordsmith. And we'll see you guys soon. And we'll have you back on. And just want to tell everybody, share. And we love you. All right.
We see y'all back here next Friday, man. Same time from 6 to 7. With Incarceration to Incorporation, all things relevant media.
Good night.